Hello and welcome, I am Shifty and I'm going to tell you about the 5 most common problems players make in Overwatch that are holding you back from the SR gains that you desire. Make sure you listen to all 5 of these points because I'm sure you've got at least one of these problems that you can work on to drastically improve your game. Tired of losing game after game? GameLeap is the proven way to help you unlock your true potential as a gamer. You'll find hundreds of in-depth courses created by some of the highest rated players in the world. Go check it out in the link below and you'll love it. Caring about stats. Now let me be absolutely clear about this. Stats do not matter when it comes to Overwatch at all, period. Here's a fun little history fact for you. When Blizzard was coming up with a way of how to display stats, they originally had something that was more standard to first-person shooter games. However, in their testing, they found that more information that players had about their teammates, the more toxic they were towards them. And another problem was that the typical stats that players cared about for these types of games, like kill-death ratio, damage done, etc., weren't exactly indicative to how a lot of the heroes in Overwatch were meant to be played and excel. So imagine that. People being even more toxic than they currently are because they thought they were justified since they had your exact stats on hand. So they redesigned this in a way for the medal system that we currently have in place. So it only shows that your current stats personally and a medal relative to how you are ranked within that category compared to the rest of your team. This system is purposely vague to discourage you from using statistics to cast blame on your teammates. And as you and I both know, that hasn't stopped players one bit from trying anyway. You have no idea of how wide the gap is between the different medal systems, and the gap between gold and bronze damage or healing could be just a few hundred points away. But you'll still have people thinking that their team is slacking because they think that X hero should be ahead of Y hero in that stat. There are some stats that are even downright misleading. The worst offender's eliminations, where all you have to do is touch a target even close to when they die and you get the same credit for an elimination. When Moira throws a damage orb into an enemy team and Pharah barrages them, but the Moira only did about 10 to 20 damage to the group, she gets the same amount of eliminations as the Pharah does. When Soldier lands a single bullet on someone accidentally, but Widowmaker snipes their head, they both get equal credit. Now, you should absolutely help your teammates get kills and focus the same targets. But don't think that someone's elimination number or medal is a good indication of whether they're a good or bad player, or that those pumping out the most damage should have the most eliminations. It's really easy for a good Winston to get a gold eliminations, and it's hard for a solid Widowmaker to do the same because of how the heroes are designed and what the stat actually shows you. Basically, unless there is an absolutely extreme example, like being gold healing on Soldier while there's a Moira on your team, do not try to use statistics as a way to prove that someone on your team is a bad player or underperforming. You're probably wrong. And while some stats can be used for personal improvement, like hook percentage on Roadhog or crit percentage on McCree or Widowmaker, try not to rely on them too much to determine whether or not you're playing well, because there are a lot more factors that these stats don't cover. For example, how much of these stats are you racking up and accruing when your team has already lost a fight and it doesn't really matter? Ultimately, the only stats that really matter in Overwatch are the number of team fights won and lost, the progress of the objectives on the map, and ultimately whether you win or lose. It doesn't matter if you killed 4 or simply enabled your teammate to pop off and killed 0 yourself. What matters is, did you win the team fight? Did you add progression on the objective or deny the objective as necessary? And did you secure that win? That's it. Another problem that players have that is far too common is that they put way too much focus on mechanical skill. Now, don't get me wrong, mechanical skill can be very important, especially for heroes like Widowmaker, McCree, Genji, and others. However, after helping hundreds and hundreds of players improve, it's absolutely clear to me that almost all of you put way too much focus on mechanical skill compared to the other problems that you are neglecting. To give a baseball example, it's like someone wanting to become a baseball player, but their fielding isn't great. They can't tell a ball from a strike, they can't hit the ball, their arm is absolutely inaccurate, but they are obsessed with throwing as hard as they can. They've got much bigger and easier to fix problems than throwing really, really hard, but they either just don't care or they don't understand how being able to throw 100 miles an hour won't solve all their other problems. That's what it feels like most of the time when someone comes to me and asking me, how can I click on heads better? But they have terrible positioning, terrible game sense, bad team play, no communication, poor hero choice, bad map understanding, team dynamic, etc. And it's so common to see players give 80% of their effort into aim trainers or playing Osu and almost no attention to the flaws they're actually making that actually turns out to be losing their games. Mechanical skill is one of the most difficult and slowest things to improve, while having some of the least impact in your ability to win games in Overwatch. You can have a bad to mediocre mechanics and easily be a masters and above player. There are tons of them, but only if you acknowledge, understand, and work towards all aspects of your flaws and the fundamentals of the game. Decision making, game knowledge, teamwork, and communication all trump mechanical skill every single time. Make sure you don't forget to focus on improving those aspects as much as your mechanics. Now we have working with team compositions. Now repeat after me. You do not need 2-2-2. That's right. You do not need 2-2-2. In fact, it hasn't been the best meta for over a year and a half now. What you do need is to make sure that your team has some sort of cohesive synergy and you try to play around your team's strengths and the strengths of your teammates. Every hero on your team is a tool, like an actual tool to use. And every ability they bring is also a tool. You are not limited by just what you can do, but what your entire team can do. For example, Lucio can make a super fast Reaper, D.Va can help Winston sit on any sniper, Ana can turn Reinhardt into an unstoppable electric juggernaut of death that will peel off the corpses of the enemy team when he's pushing the payload through their checkpoint. Point is, you need to think about how your heroes can synergize with each other, and how they can counter the enemy team. Does your team have a McCree, Soldier, Hanzo, Ana, and Zenyatta? Does the enemy team have a brawly composition with Reinhardt and Zarya? Is it your time to choose what hero to pick? Well, you can't just choose a Roadhog and actually think you're doing your job to help your team win because you chose a hero that Blizzard put under the classification of a tank. Roadhog isn't a tank. He's a big fat Reaper with a hook. Now he's a good hero, especially paired with the shield tank, but his toolkit isn't what your team needs in this situation, and you probably know that. A shield tank would probably help give your hit scan some protection, or a ball could help disrupt the enemy team if the DPS doesn't want to play around you, or you have some aversion to shield tanks. You won't always have the best compositions, but you can usually have a good enough composition if you try. While you can suggest changes, and sometimes people will listen to you, other times they won't. And if they won't, don't be that guy that locks in 50 FPS and tries to spite the rest of the team. You might win 10% of your games like that, but you're shooting yourself in the foot. Don't be the guy who picks D.Va knowing full well that you can't do anything in this situation as D.Va unless someone else swaps to a tank to support you. Try to work with what you have. Be creative with what you have. Use the tools you were given this match. You might want a hammer, a pickaxe, and some glue to fix this problem the enemy team is presenting to you. And solo queue gives you 3 rusty pairs of scissors and a lemon. Well, it might not end up being the best tasting lemonade, but it's time to make Cave Johnson proud. The next problem we have that a lot of players have is communication and target focus. Now, there are some people who are very antisocial or can't handle talking to others in Overwatch. That's really unfortunate, and I'm not going to suggest to force you to do something you absolutely hate. However, everybody needs to understand that Overwatch is a team game, and the only way your team is going to be on the same page is through communication. This is not a game you're meant to solve every problem by yourself. You need your team's help, and they need you. The best way to coordinate teamwork is if everyone is on the same page. Reinhardt needs to tell his team which way he wants everybody to go so that there's less of a chance for a team splitting up. He needs to communicate the status of his shield strength and when he's going to put it down, so that his teammates have a warning and a chance to take cover and stop poking. He needs to communicate when he wants his team to be aggressive or defensive, so that his team isn't confused on what to do when they end up relying on doing things themselves. On the other end, healers need to communicate when the team is low, or when flankers are giving them problems, or when they can't help someone and why. Players need to communicate their ultimates so their teams can help those ults become more effective, or they can help your teammates to use their ults and try to enable them. Is Reaper hiding on the high ground? Has he not used his ult in a while? Make sure we know about these things so it doesn't surprise us with a Death Blossom really soon. Ever notice how lower elo games people seem to survive way longer than they should? Fights are drawn out much longer and the time to kill people seems to be much higher? This is because of two reasons. One, obviously that the players can't aim all that well, so there's a lot of missed shots. But an even bigger factor is that the lower rank you go, the worse the target focus is. And target focus can be improved at any rank very quickly. All it takes is for someone to call out a target for everyone to focus on and make sure that your team can actually attack it. Split DPS is generally bad DPS. And while some heroes like Widowmaker can get picks by herself, the vast majority cannot. And it's always better to have multiple people shoot the same target than 3 different 1v1s. Imagine every time you tried to kill someone, got to about under a quarter of their health, and then they got away or killed you. All you needed was one other person to put any damage on that target you attacked, and it would have gone the absolutely other way. Stop relying on chance for that to happen. Make it happen by communicating to your team on who to focus on. Don't take a fair fight, take a 2 vs 1. Now you need to make sure your team can attack that target. Telling your team to focus on a Widowmaker, but no one can actually reach her isn't a great target focus. Might need a team change in some sort of hero. But telling your team to focus on a Mercy when she's flying into the middle of your team while trying to heal someone? Yeah, that's a good target focus. Make sure she gets punished for that. Target focus is the #1 thing that Plat players and below absolutely suck at. And it's honestly not that great at Diamond and above either. If you ever get someone that's rude to you, or tells you talk too much, or anything like that, mute them, block them, and continue. They are a vocal minority, and make sure you continue to do your best to help your team win. Remember, you do not need your entire team to listen to you to make communication and target focus effective. Just 1 to 2 people on the same page as you can greatly increase your team's effectiveness. The absolutely #1 thing holding players back from improving is a tendency to rely on playing on autopilot. When you start playing Overwatch, you're overwhelmed with all the new abilities and possibilities the game offers both you and other players. You start to learn what you can do, what others can do, what's effective, what's ineffective, what to watch out for, and slowly build up your game sense to how you understand the game and how you can repeat success and avoid failures through trial and error. And then at some point, you think you're smart enough to where you don't have to do any of that anymore. You've seen a thing or two on King's Row before. You know how this plays out. You turn off your critical thinking cap, you flip on your autopilot, and you run "this plan seems to work most of the time.exe, and you stop improving. You plateau. You're hard stuck. And a month later of repeating this over and over again, you're wondering why. You need to understand that every match is different. Every match is an opportunity to learn and try new things. Every match of Overwatch is a puzzle, and it's your job to figure out how to solve it. What threats does the enemy team have that you need to look out for and prepare for? What are the strengths and weaknesses of the enemy team? What are the strengths and weaknesses of your team? How can you use your team's strengths against the enemy team's weaknesses to solve this puzzle? This is called a win condition. What role can you best serve to help your team accomplish your win condition? Don't hold on to assumptions about players based solely on what hero they're playing. Make sure to adapt to how players in this match are playing. You might be able to out-widow most widows in your rank, but this might be a situation where this widow is popping off and you might need to play a diva or something else to solve that problem. This goes for your teammates too. You might hate the fact that your team chose to have a Torbjorn, but maybe he's actually doing really well and you can help him make it work better. There are a lot of critical thinking, opportunities that are necessary in each game of Overwatch. You need to adapt. You need to learn. Even if you lose, there was likely an opportunity to learn something from it and become a better player for it. I also highly recommend recording your games and watching over them. Watch how they play out after the fact. In particular games where you weren't as effective as you feel you should have been. I guarantee you that it'll look much different than you remembered. Try to find things you could have done differently or things that someone else did that was surprisingly effective, and you can either use it in the future yourself or expect it from others. When you find something that you did that was really dumb, and trust me, you will, try to think back and ask yourself, what was I thinking in that moment that made you make such a poor decision? Chances are, it was a flaw in your autopilot. And next time, when that situation happens in game, you'll remember this revelation and you'll have a chance to correct that flaw. GameLeap is the proven way to help you reach your desired rank fast. Our website, GameLeap.com, is the most comprehensive library of pro player guides available. You'll find dozens of in-depth courses that are carefully crafted by players in the top 500 bracket so you can start winning a lot more of your games. Get your membership today at 25% off. It costs about the same as a Twitch sub, so you can get much more value in return. We're so confident in our product that if you don't like it, we're happy to issue a full refund. So get your membership today by clicking right here. See you on the inside.